Hello, I am Furion, I am your host, and today I'd like to present to you an analysis of a game that I had against one of my friends. During the video I'll name mistakes that were made. I realize that I haven't covered the whole theory aspect of playing Warhammer yet, but when you want to improve or learn something, it is important to mix theory and practice in the right amounts. So in this video I'll try to limit the theory crafting to a minimum and show you important plays or omissions which may skip an eye of an unexperienced observer. That's it for an introduction, let's hop into the game. Okay, so let's talk about the rosters. So we've decided to play in ETC environment with special characters allowed. My roster consisted of Teclis, a Noble BSB, a unit of Archers, a unit of White Lions and Phoenix Guard, and some support units. So this is a list that I have been tailoring for quite some time. I'm quite happy with how it works. The rules for Teclis are visible in the brackets. Apart from the rules listed, he also doesn't randomize his spells. He chooses one spell from every law. Now onto my opponent's list, the vampire counts. So this is a list which was played by a player from Malta at the ETC 2013. And this was the highest scoring list of them all, scoring 119 points out of 120. So we have two units of Hexrace here, a unit of Crypt Horrors, some Crypt Ghouls, the Blender Lord, a Banshee and a Terrorgeist. So we are maxed on Screams as well. I very like this list, I think it is super competitive, and let's see how it goes. Now on your screen you can see what spells that I decided to pick with my tech list. So these are Wizen Wild Form, Purple Sun, Flaming Sword, Chain Lightning, The Withering, Enchanted Blades, Burning Gaze, and Flesh of Stone. While picking those spells, I considered that I actually don't have any magical attacks in my army apart from a techless sword, but that doesn't really count since it's only one attack. So I've decided to go with a Flaming Sword and Enchanted Blades because those spells grant magical attacks. Purple Sun because vampires have very low initiative and there was really no good target for dead snipes like Strength Snipe or Leadership Snipe. From Lore of Beasts there wasn't any choice actually, Wizen Wild Form was the only choice. From Shadow I could go with a Pit of Shades, a Mind Razor or a Miasma, but I've decided that I already have two magical swords and Wizen Wild Form, so there was no need for a Miasma, so I picked the Withering. The Heaven pick wasn't that important. My gaming plan included casting many low casting value spells, so Heavens was really more of a threat than a spell that I actually intended to cast. Burning Gaze gives 2d6 hits on undead units, so this is a very cheap spell that can threaten Hexrites or Crypt Horrors very well. And I decided to pick Flesh of Stone because once again it's a much cheaper investment than the Dwellers Below, and that was in line with my plan for this game. There is a common misconception that during deployment you should deploy from cheapest units to most expensive units. This is not true. What you want during your deployment is to start with units which position is already predefined and most obvious, and then adjust the units of which position you haven't decided yet to put them in a place that you actually need. So starting with deploying White Lion block in the middle, I had the option of both go to the right side of the table and to the left side of the table. It turned out that I stick to the left side of the table. So although this is on the deployment, we can already see some very big mistakes coming in our way. So I won the Vanguard role and moved my Illyrian Reavers into the ruins in the middle. The Vampire Counts player did advance like 1 or 2 inches with his Hexkright, with his Vanguard move. What he should do instead is to take them back so they can stay further away than 35 inches from the archers. The reason for that is that I can cast a very cheap spell on archers, that is Flaming Sword or Enchanted Blades of Iban, and when they shoot at Hexrites with this spell, they'll inflict heavy damage, possibly even exterminating the whole unit. So this is a first mistake that I'd like to point out. After losing the Vanguard role and seeing me moving my Illyrian Reavers into the ruins, my opponent should reevaluate the situation and act accordingly. While moving his Hexrites with 12 inches forward with a Vanguard move would be some sort of a viable option, after I blocked his Vanguard move, his move was no longer valid, so sticking to it and moving his units 1 or 2 inches forward wasn't actually an option when it was opposed to moving them back and being safe that in the first turn he won't get shot by my magical arrows. Especially in mind that I finished to deploy first and I had +1 to the roll for the first turn. I won the roll for the first turn, and in my turn I just did some small adjustments. The Illyrian Reavers moved back 9 inches so they didn't have to take the dangerous terrain tests. The Phoenix Guard and White Lions moved a little bit forward. I don't want to move my whole 10 inches allowance because I am afraid that Hexrites with extra movement from a spell can skip through my units. I don't want that. Also, the Illyrian Reavers on the right were positioned outside 16 inches from the Hexrites. Even though I killed them in the magic phase, I didn't know that by then. They were also far away from the dire wolves on the right. The dire wolves actually had a charge on double sixes, but I've decided that this is good and I'm actually willing that for my opponent to charge me, because if he does, then he will most likely fail and I'll have another turn when I don't have to worry about being redirected by direwolves. In the magic phase I was quite lucky because I managed to get 2 spells in. I got in Enchanted Blades of Iban on archers, which then shoot to the Hexrites on the hill, and they managed to kill the entire unit. Then I also managed to get in Burning Gaze on the Hexrites on the left, killing 6 of them. So this was a very, very good start for me, a very good turn. So let's not lose our track here. What was important here? It wasn't a combination of lucky rolls that I managed to get the spells and kill the Hexrites and kill the half of the other unit of Hexrites. It was the mistake in deployment, in movement, in Vanguard. If he just put his Hexrites back, none of that would have happened. If you want to improve in Warhammer, you have to have a very open mind and accept such mistakes, because after such a game you shouldn't go to your friends and complain that your opponent got lucky and got the 2 spells in. That's not important at all. What is important, that you gave him the possibility that if he gets lucky, he pretty much puts himself at a big advantage. And you had total control over it. The only thing that you had to do was to reevaluate the situation after you lost the Vanguard roll and put your units a little bit back. My opponent in his turn pretty much advances. I allow him to get the Van Hell on the ghouls in so he can be even closer to me, but he positions himself in a very unfortunate manner, and I'm able to exploit that fact in my next turn. So this is what I do. The Silver Helms charge the Hexrites. I decide to not charge with the main blocks. Teclis changes units, he goes into the archers, and now the grievous mistake by my opponent. The unit of Illyrian Reavers on the right positions themselves in a line and is able to block 2 of his units, Crypt Horrors and Crypt Ghouls, from charging this turn. Of course he can charge out with his Vampire Lord, but he doesn't see the archers. The ghouls see the archers but can't complete the charge because they would hit the Illyrian Reavers. The important stuff to note about this setup is that those Illyrian Reavers have to be within 12 inches of Teclis and have to be within 12 inches of General and battle standard bearer, because if they don't, the Terrorgeist can charge them, force a terror check, and then the whole game opens. In my magic phase, my plan was to boost Silver Helms with enchanted blades and flaming sword. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get any spell in, so they just died. But so little number of Hexrites doesn't pose any real threat. My shooting concentrates on the Terrorgeist and he's dealt 4 wounds. In my opponent's turn, he charges the Illyrian Reavers, kills them, does the reforms, charges archers, tries to kill the Teclis but fails. He has only 1 attack from a Hexrite, and I reform and I pretty much stabilize. Then it comes my 3rd turn when I decide that this is the high time to charge, and both of the blocks go into Crypt Ghouls, and Illyrian Reavers block the Crypt Horrors, so I have 2 rounds of combat versus Ghouls with my 2 elite units, and I don't have to worry about Crypt Horrors. I intended to do a reform with White Lions afterwards, so that Crypt Horrors, when chasing or overrunning after Illyrian Reavers, won't hit the White Lion block. But then came the magic phase, and I managed to cast the Purple Sun through all the ghouls and all the Crypt Horrors, and after that point my opponent conceived the game. So what's important here? The entertaining value is that, yeah, Purple Sun got in, and yet another game has been directly won by Purple Sun, but that's not the point. What you should see here, if you want to improve in Warhammer, is that there were plenty of mistakes which came from positions. There was not a single mishap which regarded the dice. My opponent lost this game purely because of the way he moved his army. Not a single dice roll did influence that. And if you remember that, and you try to think about the games in that way, then rest assured that you are on your way to be a better Warhammer player. Thank you very much for watching. Feel free to rate the video, and remember, if you would like to see more episodes or more frequent episodes, then subscribing and leaving a comment is a direct way to help me. Thank you.